the Supreme Court made a ruling that essentially lifted any kind of regulations on corporate campaign donations. You wrote an article saying that that move exposes the myth of democracy, and the system that we have in place here in the U.S. is inverted totalitarianism. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, first of all, the idea that the Supreme Court ruling fundamentally changed the structure of American government is incorrect. It streamlined the process by which corporations are able to use influence peddling in the form of direct campaign contributions. But it doesn't alter the structure. The financial services industry, for example, has spent $5 billion over the last decade on campaigns, what we call political action committees or PACs, negative advertising, lobbying efforts, and there are 35,000 corporate lobbyists registered in Washington who manipulate the legislative process to such an extent that they actually write the legislation and they get pliable elected officials or legislators in Congress to pass it. The term inverted totalitarianism is a way to describe a system that is totalitarian at its core, but is not a classical form of totalitarianism. It doesn't revolve around a demagogue or a charismatic leader, but finds its expression in the anonymity of the corporate state. In inverted totalitarianism, you don't have a revolutionary party, like, for instance, the Bolsheviks, who rise up against a decaying system and replace it. You have a powerful entity, in this case corporate, that purports to pay fealty to electoral politics, to the Constitution, to traditional freedoms, to the iconography and language of American patriotism, yet has so corrupted the levers of power as to make that democracy inoperable. In classical totalitarian regimes, whether it was Soviet communism or Nazi fascism, politics always trumped economics. That's how you ended up with the famine in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union. In inverted totalitarianism, economics always trumps political decisions. And with that comes a different form of ruthlessness. Now, one should also make it very clear that the peculiar quality of American corporatism is intimately linked to the defense industry. 60% now of discretionary spending, federal discretionary spending, goes to the defense-related industry. And that permanent war economy, coupled with the corporate state, is destroying the heart of America, quite literally.
How do you think everything could turn to the worse now that the rules of the political game have changed?
Well, what changes is that corporations can now make direct contributions in a way that they had to, for instance, firms like Goldman Sachs had to follow a process called bundling, which meant that there were limits on what an individual could contribute, but they would go around and give a long list of employees, and it would turn out to be a $100,000 contribution. I mean, this was just, this makes it easier to influence or to get the money directly to political candidates who will do corporate bidding.
The motion to reconsider would be
it would be false to suggest that there were any kind of firewalls before. This was something that wasn't happening before. If you look at the first bailout plan, the $700 billion that was proposed for Wall Street, constituent calls coming into congressional offices were 100 to 1 against that plan, and yet it passed anyway. Why did it pass? Because, of course, the corporations wanted it passed. You can look at our health care bill, which is, in essence, going to force American citizens to buy their very defective product. Inefficient, they will have the capacity to raise co-payments and premiums. The telecommunications companies that push through the FISA Reform Act. I mean, bill after bill after bill furthers corporate fraud and disempowers the citizenry. And what we have been undergoing, in essence, since the Reagan administration, is a kind of coup d'etat in slow motion.